We're going to take a look at arpeggio forms crossing 6 strings, and the one we'll look at today is the 7th chord arpeggio, the same 7th chord sound that you would hear in a 12-bar blues as an example. It's not the major 7th chord sound. That's a different sound. So this arpeggio, in the case of A7, it's going to have the notes A, C sharp, E, and G, or with that minor 7th from the root. Minor 7th, or sometimes called the flat 7. 1, 3, 5, flat 7. And then we do that same thing again, 1, 3, 5, flat 7. So 1, 3, 5, flat 7. And then I shifted, as you could see, to 5th position, 1, 3, 5, flat 7, and then my root up here, and we can go as far as the 3. So here's the arpeggio. You can get the flat 7 down there as well, and moving, as long as you're returning to the root. I'm going to do that slowly. Now we're going to talk about fingerings. The numbers I was using before had to do with the degrees of the scale. Now we're going to start to talk about how to finger this scale. Playing an A7, I'm in 4th position, 2nd finger on the bottom, on the root. And the fingering is 2, 1, 4, 1. Shifting to position 5. 2, 1, 4, 1. Now I'm in position 5, and then I go as finger 3, 2, 1 in a little triad here, like A triad, right? 3, 2, 1, 4, 1, 4, way up there on the 3rd, right? So just from here, from the little triad, 7, returning down exactly the same way, always returning down the same way. Ascending and descending are identical. So what I'm playing here is an A7 arpeggio using exactly the same notes as an A7 chord, right? So the notes in this A7 chord that I'm playing here are A, G, C sharp, and E. A, G, C sharp, and E. The notes I'm playing in my arpeggio are A, C sharp, G, E, G, and then A, C sharp, E, G, right? Exactly the same notes. So now what we want to do is, when we look at this chord form, we want to be able to express this chord form with our arpeggio form, right? So here's a great way to practice this. I'm going to start down here, let's say on G. You get the idea. You've heard this kind of practice before. And any speed that's even, you can see I'm getting the flat 7 below the root as well, returning. I'll slow it down. And so on. So the arpeggio expresses the chord, and the arpeggio can be used for all sorts of stuff. You can break up the chord into smaller segments if you like. You can use that arpeggio to solo over the chord. I'm not suggesting, when I'm saying using the arpeggio to solo over the chord, I'm not suggesting a sort of a pedantic approach to just playing the arpeggio and calling that a solo, right? That's not really the idea. When you practice arpeggios, what you're learning to do is build an inventory of notes that you can use in your soloing that define the chord. So I'm not suggesting playing the arpeggio, as I said, back and forth, because that's going to sound really boring. But you can make note choices this way. So if I have my A7 and I know my arpeggio, right? I'll put the 3rd. So all all those were arpeggio notes. You get the idea. So I'm deliberately trying to stick right to the arpeggio notes. But arpeggios are really all about expressing the chords in single notes. And as well, what you should be aware of having below your chord is the chord scale. In this case, this chord scale would be A Mixolydian, right, with the flat 7. The difference between a major scale and a Mixolydian scale, or a Mixolydian mode, is that the Mixolydian mode has a flat 7. That's the only difference. Because the A7 chord, or the 7 chord, has a flat 7, so must the scale also have a flat 7. There it is, right? In both octaves. Flat 7 there as well, and arpeggio, flat 7, and so on. So what we're beginning to talk about is grouping your chord sounds with your scale sounds and with an arpeggio. Today, this was the root on 6th string, 7th arpeggio.